Force, Lions Club, and Rotary Club members. Last month, I have to apologize. I am going to, I didn't tell you a joke. So I will tell you, yeah, it's terrible, isn't it? So I will tell you a joke this month. A man was stopped by the police at midnight and asked where he was going. The man said, I'm on my way to listen to a lecture about the effects of alcohol and drug abuse on the human body. The policeman asked, really? And who's going to give a lecture like that at this time of night? And the chap replied, my wife. So there you are. I remembered the joke this month. We will be having an executive meeting in August, basically to discuss reopening, which we hope will happen sometime in the fall. So just stay tuned, and we will get to everyone with more information when it is available. Jean Harches, you are here. Do you have anything to report?
Nothing to report this month.
Okay, thank you. I don't think Roger's here, is he? So Roger is the treasurer, and I assume that everything is well and good. And then our next meeting next month, I'd like to remind you, August the 18th, will be our mayor. So please, it's an important meeting for everyone to attend, and I think it will be a very interesting one. And my goodness, excuse me, I'm looking at myself on my screen, and it's dreadful. I get my COVID haircut next week. I'm so looking forward to it. It's so exciting. Anyway, I am going to pass over now to Jeannie, who will introduce Arup Mukherjee, our speaker on Highway 43. Jeannie, over to you.
So, hi. Can you hear me? Yes? Hi, it's with great pleasure that I get to introduce Arup, and it's A-R-U-P, P is in PROBUS, Mukherjee, who is our speaker today and who's going to give us an update on the expansion of Highway 43. Arup is a municipal engineer and has been the Director of Public Works for Leeds Granville for over 30 years and is currently retired. So welcome, Arup. We're ready for you.
Excellent. Thank you, Jean, for that introduction. And I haven't been with Leeds Grenville for 30 years, but I've worked for 34 years in the industry. And I was having a little bit of fun with the newsletters and the announcements, because they spelt my name A-R-U-B as in business, as opposed to A-R-U-P as in Probus. So I don't know who Arup is, and I don't know who that speaker is, but I'm going to be here trying to entertain you for a little while. Trust me, I've heard many other versions of my name, and I've heard them all. So it's always interesting to see. But that's not an uncommon one when you just hear my name when I just pronounce it. So thank you all for giving me a few moments of your time to present. And then I also wanted to pick up, somebody said Highway 43, and that's actually just an interesting point of discussion, because what we're doing is we're really currently, you would say, yeah, it's kind of like a highway, a rural road, and we're transforming that street, as I'm going to show you through the pictures and some of the video. We're transforming it, and in fact, the municipality of North Grenville, your local municipality, has actually taken to try to change the moniker. It's currently known as County Road 43, and they actually want to call it Boulevard 43, and who knows where this ends up at the end of the day. But the point is, they're trying to convey the concept that we're trying to make this road fit with the community, fit with the environment, and fit with the changing nature of the community. And there's a desire to get away from a highway going through town, as often MTO roads have and do all across the province, where they go through townships, and they are called highways in various numbers. And so that's something I wanted to bring up because it kind of sets the context for what we're trying to do with County Road 43 or Boulevard 43 or whatever it ends up happening. Is what does a name mean at the end of the day? But it carries some weight and it carries some context for the municipality. Nobody wants a highway running through their community, but people would like to see a nice boulevard with medians and trees. And so I don't want to give away too much of my thunder in terms of what I'm going to talk about today. So I'm going to go ahead and start sharing my screen, and hopefully all of you see my presentation here right now. So yeah, so what I'm going to talk about today is, and if for whatever reason, you know, in the current technology world that we live in, my voice or my video stops working, just let me know, because there's another room I'll go try it from. And really, so here we are. We're going to talk a little bit about County Road 43, the widening of it from 2 to 4 lanes. And really, this is being undertaken, the process we're going through with this design and the presentation of the public is really an addendum, what's called an addendum to the environmental study report. And I'll give you some of that background in the next few slides, and is going through a class environmental assessment as it's called. Really, just at a very high level, I'll just tell you a little bit about my background, what my role is on this project. So I'm a professional engineer, graduated from University of Waterloo, 1987. Just about 34 years of municipal engineering experience, working for a number of municipalities, mostly in the GTA, Toronto, Markham, you would all know, York region. So I've worked for what I call both, from a civics point of view, you'll understand that townships are often part of a larger municipality. So you have North Grenville that's part of Leeds and Grenville, right? Counties. So in more rural areas, municipalities form part of counties. In more urban areas, they are part of a region or something like that. So I worked from Markham, Toronto, Markham, York region, which is just the big region north of Toronto, which was composed of a number of urban municipalities and rural as well. Then I moved a little bit further, I kept moving north to a community called Bradford, West Gwillimbury, which is a little bit north of Newmarket, to give you a sense of where it is. And it was my first sort of opportunity to work in a community that also had a bit of rural background. As some of you may know, the Holland Marsh is right in Bradford. And if you go straight up to 400 north of Newmarket, you'll see all the rich, dark soil on either side of the highway, and a unique feature in Holland Marsh. So that gave me an opportunity to work in a bit more. And then some life changes happened to me, and there was an opportunity to come out to the Eastern Ontario here, and I was working for the counties of Leeds and Grenville, whose offices are centered, their admin offices are centered in Brockville. And so the counties of Leeds and Grenville is the county within which North Grenville resides, along with all of the other municipalities near us here. And I worked there for just under 4 years. No, I would say 4 years. And you know, I hit my numbers, as many of you probably did in your careers, in August of last year. Started to realize through the pandemic that you know, all those things you plan for, don't count on them. And I said, no, it's best to get on with enjoying life on my own terms. And so I set up, I did retire. I set up my own one-person consulting firm just to keep myself in the industry and stay in touch with my colleagues and ease myself out of retirement. It's been a lot of fun because I've been able to take on projects that I enjoy and not be inundated with another 20 projects and attention from a number of people, other than the friends that I want to golf with. So it's been fantastic. I've really enjoyed it. So one of the wonderful opportunities I've had is when I was leaving, I was working, before I left, I was working on this project on County Road 43. And as I was leaving, there was going to be a gap until the new director came. And the counties asked if I would stay on and carry on with at least bringing this project to a certain stage. And I said, yeah, I think I can handle that, and I think that'll be a lot of fun. And because this project is right in my own backyard, I mean, I live in Kemptville as well, quite familiar with it. And I thought this would be a great opportunity to continue working on this project. So that's kind of where I come from, what my background is. And that's why you see me here talking about County Road 43. So just so they're clear, I'm not with AECOM. AECOM is the main consultant on the project. They are the main design consultant. They're doing all the technical work. So I'm working, I've been retained on behalf of the counties of Leeds and Grenville to oversee the project, obviously working very closely with them on key issues and moving forward. So that gives you a bit of a flavor for what my role and background on this project is. So let's talk about, so this presentation I'd actually, it was a part of what we call our Public Information Center, which was held on May 19th. And really, this is following what's known as a class environmental assessment process. So any major construction work that happens, and there's all kinds of thresholds and criteria that apply, you are required to follow a very formal public process, not just public process, but a formal process in terms of the data that you collect, the environmental data that you collect, the socioeconomic data that you collect. And you have to put all that together in a formal report called an environmental assessment study. Many of you are probably familiar with this kind of process and documentation. And then you have to present all that, and as part of that, there is public consultation that's mandated. And why did we have this process? It's just to make sure that municipalities were doing their due diligence. And so this is a province requirement. It's a legislation, the Municipal Act, not the Municipal, sorry, the Environmental Assessment Act requires you to go through this process just to ensure that there's a level of consistency when municipalities take on large major projects. Obviously you're not going to do it if you're patching a small area of road or fixing up a small bit of intersection, but anything that's reasonably significant is going to require this process, and it provides that consistency so that all municipalities across Ontario are following a similar process of data collection, presentation, public input, and then of course ultimately approval by the province. So that's what this project, that's what this process is going through. And what I'm going to tell you, go through today is give you a little bit about the study itself, talk a little about the road design and the bridge design across Kemptville Creek that you see there in blue, and just give you a hint of what the construction schedule might be, and then go ahead and tell you a little bit of what's happening next. So by way of background in terms of this project, it's been going on for a fairly long time, well before 2010. There was identified a need, and we're long past, in my opinion, the need for changing this road. As I said, communities change and they grow, and this road served a purpose back then as a two-lane rural road going through a community with ditches and a very rural character. But that need has changed over the years as development has occurred, as growth has occurred in North Grenville. The need for that road changed for a long time. So well before 2010, the study got initiated. In 2010, the what I was referring to as the municipal class environmental assessment was completed, submitted, and got approved. And at that time, there was also approval to keep the existing bridge across Kemptville Creek and build a new two-lane bridge. And I'll talk about that in the next slide, a little bit about the time lapse. So obviously between 2010, when the project was approved, and 2020, 10 years have passed. A number of conditions have changed, and from an environmental point of view, socioeconomic point of view. And so in accordance with the process that laid out, you cannot, usually when you complete an environmental assessment study report and it gets approved, that's your green light to go ahead and start construction. However, as many of you might know, and certainly led by your current mayor in this council, and also by previous mayor and previous councils, there has been a tremendous amount of lobbying to try to get some funding from the federal and provincial levels. I attended a number of those face-to-face meetings with the ministers, and there wasn't a lot of success at the time, up until a couple of years ago, when formally some federal and provincial funding got announced for this project, again led with the efforts of the county council, municipal council here in North Grenville, and to no small extent, I would be remiss if I didn't mention Steve Clark and his efforts at the province to bring attention to this community and the efforts there. So through all those efforts, at the end of the day, some funding came through, and all of a sudden now we were ready to start the project. And so of course, before you could put shovel into the ground, you had to do this addendum, which meant you had to document the changes over the last 10 years, go through a public process, which we did at the public meeting, and then present the results. So one of the main things that's changed was the bridge structure at County Road, or at Kemptville Creek, County Road 43, obviously in Kemptville Creek. You're all familiar with the bridge there, right where Stinson's is. And so imagine, like, more than 10 years ago, because the studies, even though the environmental assessment was actually approved in 2010, all of the technical information was done a little bit before that. So you can imagine that 10 years have now elapsed between when the technical studies were done on that existing bridge. And, we wanted to make sure, and so we did a fair bit of investigation on the current bridge, including some underwater investigations. So if you understand the bridge, it has piers or abutments, and those extend right down, they go underneath the water. And so, we through the consultants, we actually went under the water, checked the condition, did a full inspection of the bridge. And not surprisingly, at the time the study was done, the logic of keeping the 2-lane bridge and building a brand new one on the north side made a lot of sense, because at that time, the condition of the existing bridge was relatively good. And then one would have thought back then, if you'd built the project then, you would have gotten another, and we felt at that time there was comfortably another 10 years worth of life in the bridge. As you can see, it was built in 1955. Well, 10 years later, we couldn't say the same thing. As engineers, we'll want to always make sure that safety is a priority. You've heard all kinds of news lately about structures and, the building in Florida. All these things happen. And we do always, engineers, we try to do our best to assess the condition of something. And so in this case, we felt that really, based on that survey, we really didn't think there was a lot more life. And we couldn't tell exactly, but it was most certainly not 10 years. Whether, it's not 1 year, the bridge is not like imminent to collapse. However, we felt and the value of the project we're undertaking here is, it's a good $37 million project, right? So at the end of the day, I went to council and I said, listen, there's a number of reasons why we should not bother leaving the existing bridge and building a new 2-lane one separate from it. Let's just build a brand new 4-lane bridge. And the reasons were, that the existing bridge doesn't have enough life left in it, and within the next 5 years there may be problems with it. You might have to shut it down to trucks and vehicles, and that would be a huge impact to the community. If you were to keep the existing bridge now, and then several years later, as traffic now gets used to traveling in 4 lanes, you would have to take down the existing 2-lane bridge. That would cause a significant impact to the community. Not to mention that construction costs generally don't go down, they only go up. So if you're coming back to revisit this, 5 years from now, you're going to be faced with, increased cost and increased complexity in dealing with the bridge. And also, environmental awareness also evolves over time. So, again, if you look 5 years from now, there may be a number of other environmental sensitivities that may come into play and make it more difficult to construct the bridge. So those were some of the key reasons. Went to county council, and county council agreed There was clearly a little bit, you know, I'm not going to say little bit, because when you're talking millions of dollars, not little bit. There was clearly a greater investment that would have been required. But I think for all the reasons I mentioned, it was recognized by County Council that that investment was worth it. And so that's one of the really main changes that occurred, in that we decided to build a brand new fort. And I'll tell you a little bit about how that would be staged, so that we're not disrupting traffic. So when we come to that particular element, I'll so that's kind of takes us, and you can imagine if you're going from a 2-lane structure to a 4-lane structure now, you know, that's obviously considered a significant change, and that, along with a number of other changes, resulted in the need to basically kickstart an addendum to the environmental assessment. So we didn't have to do a whole brand new one. The process allows you to focus in on the specific changes, and that's why this is really called an addendum to the 2010 study. So I'm sorry, I'm kind of being a bit long-winded there, but I wanted to give you a good picture of what is an addendum, what is an environmental assessment study, and why we're doing it. So hopefully those couple of slides kind of gave you that overview. So let's move on to something a little bit more exciting, which is some of the pictures around this project. So this is the current design that's being proposed. I don't know, can you all see my cursor as I move it around? Okay, great. So sometimes it's a tough drawing to see, and cross sections are not the best, but I'm just giving this quick overview, and then we'll get into more 3-dimensional pictures. So, you know, was one thing I learned in my career is, like, you know, engineering drawings don't mean a lot to the average person. But imagine if you were to take a cross section, slice it right down across the road, and you were looking full on to the roadway. This is what you would see, and this is what's being planned. There's going to be a median in certain places of varying widths down the middle of the roadway. We're going to widen to 2 3.5 meter lanes on each side of the median. Then there's a little boulevard area, which is also very important, not only to you know, where the poles and utility poles and light poles are going to go, but also provides an important function for snow storage, right? So as you plow a 2-lane road, you need to put the snow somewhere, and then you know, move this over to what we know is a bi-directional. The term there is MUP. Engineers are notorious for acronyms. It's just really a multi-use pathway. So it's a combining the sidewalk and the pedestrians into one facility, and this starts to give you a bit of a visual. You see that this is the concept plan. We did a little rendering. And so here you can see Stinson, you know, and you've got this median down the middle that I showed in the cross section. Here's your 2 lanes of traffic, and then you have this multi-use path that would be used on both sides of the road. And that was also an important decision. Do you build it on both sides or one side? You know, and so therefore we decided that it was important to do this again as an investment on both sides. So that gives you a little bit of a visual. There's some better ones coming up that you'll be able to see a better picture of it. So, and then there's I'm not going to bother talking about this. We'll cover it off. So another option here is just across where the dairy barn is, we have a number of driveways in close proximity, a number of businesses on the south side of the road. And so rather than having a median down there, we decide at this point anyways, this consideration of having sort of a 2-way center left turn lane so that people can turn in and turn out of the businesses. In this particular section, it's a fairly short section from the dairy barn and then to the west. Unlike the other sections where when you see the design, you'll see that there are a number of roundabouts being proposed. And the intention is, even though there's a median, you'll be able to turn and go to the roundabout, go around the roundabout, and continue in the other direction if you wish. And so the roundabouts play a role in providing access to those businesses. But in this section, because the roundabout is quite a bit of ways down over at Anniversary Way, where the Ferguson Forest entrance is, we felt that there was an opportunity here to keep it open and break it up to move along. Now, we did get some commentary about this, and hopefully I'll hear some from all of you as well. So as we go along. So I'm gonna kind of go through this, and I always struggle with questions during a presentation. There's a lot to cover, and I would just maybe ask that as those questions come to mind for you, feel free to maybe just, if you can use the chat function, go ahead and type them in. But I will obviously pause at the end of the meeting, and we'll have a free and nice open session about questions. I just don't want you to lose. What I always advise my audience is sometimes you see something and a question comes up and then you forget the question. I may cover it off, I may not, but I would also like for you to type in your questions, and maybe Anna can facilitate those if there's a bunch of questions written down in the chat. But I like to tell people that, tell the audience that please write your question down as you're seeing it, because it's fresh in your mind, and there's no such thing as a silly question. So I want to encourage you, because I want to encourage this dialogue. So we're going to start here at the project at what we call the west, essentially the west end of the project, where we have County Road 44. That's the road that goes up. Your municipal center is just to the north here. You have Jim Perry Motors here, Motor Trends here. So this is the west limit of the project, and it is being proposed. Currently, it's a traffic signal, a traffic light, and this is one of the first roundabouts. Is going to be converted from a signal to a roundabout, and I'm sure we'll have some healthy discussion about signals and roundabouts. And so I'm going to take this opportunity now, because you're going to see this theme throughout the project about roundabouts. People like them, people hate them. There's all kinds of reasons to like or not like them. But from an engineering point of view, they're a very, very efficient way to manage what we call the competing traffic flows, right? So you have your north-south flow, you have east-west flow, you have left turns, you have pedestrians. And so a roundabout does a great job of providing an efficient manner in which to manage that conflict, mainly because you're not having to come to a full stop. So from an environmental point of view, you're not getting the idling, you're getting vehicles going through at a reasonable pace. Another is that you reduce the delay for the motorists, who don't have to come to a stop and wait for all the other movements to finish before you're allowed to go again. And then really the number one reason, and one of the best reasons to support a roundabout, is from a safety point of view. So in a normal intersection that you have today, you have your traffic light there. And so you have a number of conflicts that occur. So a person making a left turn, could, you have a conflict with a person going through. A person making a right turn can be hit by a person coming straight through. And the worst kind is a person going through getting hit by someone who's running a red light. And these things do happen. And, that's what's known as a T-bone collision, right? So when you have a right turn angle collision, the most severe collision you can have, and it's the one that actually results in the most personal body injuries. And frankly, is those T-bone collections are the ones that lead tragically to death in many situations. So what the roundabout does is it completely eliminates all those conflicts. And then the only conflict that you're left with is a person turning right and a person in the roundabout. Now, I heard earlier when I was on about people talking about how people use a roundabout and whether but that we're going to have to develop a bit more of an education campaign for that to improve that. But at the end of the day, from a pure operational point of view, and we're not, those of you that may be familiar with other parts of the world and throughout the US, in fact, and even not so far in Waterloo region, I believe Waterloo region has something like 45 to 50 roundabouts in that region. They've obviously been in England and Europe for a long time. So there's a wealth of information about the statistics related to roundabouts. And the beauty of this is that based on those statistics, they have shown that compared to a signalized intersection, a roundabout will reduce personal injury collisions by almost 80%. Okay, so that is a very significant statistic. Um, Plays right into the reasons why we want to change this, and along with the conveniences that I talked about earlier. That's a main reason. The more complex and the more busy a signalized intersection gets, the more likelihood that you're increasing the risk of a collision, because you're going to start introducing dedicated left turn phases. You're going to start having so much volume on the main road that someone trying to make a left starts to take a risk on making that left turn. And left turn and through vehicle conflicts are one of the major sources of collisions also. And this gets rid of all of that, right? So if you're traveling north on the roundabout, as all of you know, you're already in the community, you want to go left, you just go around the roundabout and continue left, right? So there is no left turn conflict anymore. And that's a main reason why roundabouts are selected. When you weigh all the other factors, from that safety perspective, it really is a major factor in helping. So that's why roundabouts have been selected. Before the Class EA started from this, there was also an envisioning exercise done for what we want County Road 43 to look like. And in that process also, this was identified as a roundabout corridor. And that's why you have the roundabouts there today, because there was a vision that we would accommodate things with roundabouts, make it what we call a roundabout corridor. And we have continued that vision in this next design exercise. So this is a different perspective. Here you're looking north. Jim Perry Motors is here again. Motor Trends is here. I think it's called Pioneer now, is over here. Some wonderful pizza and wings at this little place here if you haven't been. And you can see how we built in these pedestrian crossings in the roundabout. And these are basically what's known as a two-stage crossing. We put them on the main roadways because what it does is and those walls are nowhere near going to be as high as what they see here. But as a pedestrian, you're only going to have to deal with traffic coming in one direction. You don't have to worry about left turns, right turns, nothing. You're going to face traffic in one direction. You're going to cross the road. And that we've designed the switchback so that you're turning, so that you're going to be facing the traffic that's coming towards you. You're going to be forced to look at that traffic and then cross another two-lane section. And they're not shown here, but these also will be outfitted with pedestrian crossing devices. So what does that mean? So that's over like in front of the municipal center. You'll see that there's flashing lights, beacons, and a set pedestrian. And so you can press that button, traffic. And now some people talk about, how that'll affect the operation of the roundabout. And, as long as you set this back far enough, it's only 2 lanes of traffic. It doesn't delay the vehicles that long. Really they've worked well in other jurisdictions and provide an enhanced level of pedestrian crossing for the pedestrian. And again, think about this. That's something that enhances the safety. So that's a design feature that'll be put in on this. So this is what I was talking about. Again, those walls they're going to be only like, I think about a foot or something high, just to provide some delineation. And you're going to cross, you're going to be facing the traffic, and whether you're walking across with a bicycle, this is what's being proposed in terms of going across the roundabout. It's a switchback design, make it, and by providing some of these walls and extra illumination, you really bring attention to that intersection and that location so motorists know what's happening there. So and then we move on to the next intersection. And throughout this sort of graphic, you can see the aerial photo, so you can pick up some of the features in the background. But you can start to see this green median down the middle, and then on each end of the roundabout, and in certain portions, provides another opportunity to break up the asphalt. And we're still to determine through conversation with North Grenville as to what's going to be in the middle there. But this is over at the Shoppers Drug Mart. Over here, the school soccer fields over here, and again replacing the signal there with a roundabout. And in this case, it will be a 3-leg roundabout because there is no 4th leg there. And you can see the feature, and again the pedestrian crosswalks with the switchbacks, recognizing that we have a number of high school students that do walk through over here to go get those wonderful pizza and wings I talked about over at the Pioneer. I think it's Sam's Pizzeria, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, so that's what being proposed there. And then so there's a 3D view of that. This is looking north. There's Shoppers Drug Mart there. And this is what it'll look like with the 2 switchback pedestrian crossings at that location. And that gives you a sense of what it might look like. And then this was this section I was telling you about, where we have a number of businesses here on the south side with 1, 2, 3 driveways. And so from a design point of view, we felt we didn't want to put a median across here because if you're coming from the east and you wanted to get in here, it's not too bad because you would go over to the Shoppers Drug Mart. But if you wanted to go left from here, you would have to, if we had a median there, you would have to turn right and go a significant distance before you got to Anniversary Way in order to turn left. And so right now there's a consideration to kind of keep that open to allow that flow of traffic into and out of these businesses. Doesn't mean that can't change. You know, if this south side redevelops at some point and it's consolidated and there's one access, there could be an opportunity to keep the median there and improve that. And that's something that can be modified fairly easily because you have that center median that you can modify. So then we get to Anniversary Way. So you have your cemetery right here. You have the Creekside Center Plaza. So the M&Ms here. I think Little Caesars is over here. If you picked up a theme of mine, it's always centered around food. I seem to know where all the good eating establishments are. So I had those become my landmark, like the Dairy Barn with its ice cream and chips and et cetera, et cetera. Anyways. Just a weakness of mine, but anyhow, we're pretty lucky to have some of those options available to us in this community, aren't we? So here's the cemetery, Anniversary Way, and this, of course, leads into the Ferguson Forest Center. A number of amenities up there, from walking trails. I believe there's a dog park up there, and not to mention a number of other amenities that you have up there. So this was an important crossing. And again, which is why there's this investment in the switchbacks, because recognizing that you have a pretty large residential community to the south, and then you have this amenity of the Ferguson Forest to the north. And so we've beefed up this pedestrian crossing here. Let's see. Okay. Moving on then. So that's just a 3D view, just to give you a sense again. Looking north, this is the cemetery here, the plaza here, and this gives you a little feel for visually for what this roundabout would look like. And then we're really moving easterly and so Anniversary Way is just over here on the left side of your screen, and this is currently being planned to be another roundabout, which really will be something that will serve the gas station as well as the retirement home here. So when the site plan was approved for the retirement home, their access was built at a different location, but it was recognized that that would come in and be part of this roundabout and the gas station on the north side. So you know, there are options there to accommodate. There's a bit of work to do with instance to relocate this, and it may not happen immediately. There might be a temporary condition until they're ready to develop, you know, and go from there. So I'm just gonna see. There's a few questions I see, but I'm just gonna take a look here and see if I can pick up the chat questions here, and if I can incorporate them into. So I'm gonna go. I'm picking up a couple of questions, and I figure there's a good chance that I can answer the questions going through the presentation. So the first question I see there is, with the project ending about 200 meters, what does that mean? Yes, you're right. It will transition down to 2 lanes. When the study was done, there was the traffic volumes that were projected didn't really show a need to go all the way to the roundabout at Pine Hill. And there is a fair bit of room between where that ends and where Pine Hill is. There is a transition area. They're not uncommon. Roundabouts start and end, 4-lane roads start and end in many places. And then really Somerville is quite a bit further west. And if you were to extend that 4 lanes all the way through, you would have to modify the roundabout both at Pine Hill and at Somerville. And at the time we revisited the study and revisited the traffic volumes, the vast majority of the traffic volume was in the portion you're looking at here. And therefore there wasn't a need identified to take on that much more complex work over there. So there's a question here. That's kind of hopefully that answered the question. If not, please feel free to ask it again. Another question here that please explain how the high school intersect intersection Shoppers Drug Mart circle. I was unable to figure it out from the drawing. Okay, so let me go back. Oops. Let me go back to the Shoppers Drug Mart. Yeah, so really replacing the intersection with a light. The intersection that is currently, you can see underneath the fabric here, it's an intersection with traffic lights. And so the driveway will be redesigned to come in as a third leg to the roundabout. And then the County Road 43 stays the same with the 2 legs of County Road 43 coming in, and you'll go around the roundabout. So if you're coming from Shoppers and you want to head east towards Campbell Creek or to the highway at 416, you would come down here, you would just go around the roundabout and you would carry on east. If you're coming from the west, if you're coming from County Road 44 and you want to get into, you would come in here, you would go around the roundabout like that, and you would enter into Shoppers Drug Mart. So again, that's generally the design we have there. And then of course you have the pedestrian crossings, as I mentioned, the 2-stage pedestrian crossings there as well. I think there was one more question. If I see it again, another one, I'll come back to it. So we talked about Stinson's, the seniors home. Oops, there's and I hope you don't mind that I'm kind of stopping, because I think that I want to cover them as we go through, because it's fresh in your mind and I have the slides up. Question was about the high school. Okay, I'll come back to that in a minute. So there was another question or a comment, I guess. Oops, sorry. Which is, oh, I'm going too fast here. Let me go backwards. High school intersection, we covered off that question. Does Bridge Street become Anniversary Way? That is correct. Bridge Street comes down from the south from Van Buren. It hits the cemetery and it splits. And then if you go to the right and come up that way, it becomes Anniversary Way. And someone listening to the advantage of a roundabout. The Prince of Wales going into Manotick, very tight circle. It is a nightmare for a large truck driver. Yeah, so one thing about roundabout design is and even in the ones you see today, is they're built with a concrete apron. And so what happens is, as a motorist, you'll have a tighter circle to go around. And the purpose of that is to slow you down. But then when trucks are navigating, all these modern roundabouts are designed with a concrete apron, so that as the back wheels of the truck, as you turn, they tend to track a little bit more to the inside. They actually travel, they get on top of that apron and they drive it, and it's designed in concrete so that they don't get up and start destroying landscaping and asphalt. So we actually have a truck apron that's designed to allow trucks to go around the roundabout. So regarding the school entrance, no, I'm gonna go back and talk about the school entrance, and you're right, there is a bit of change there. How do you get into and out of the school? Fair question. So let me maybe go back and I'll just explain that a little bit better. I don't know if that was covered off in the drawing. Yeah, so it's a good question there because I didn't finish off the how it actually will work. So the school entrance, you're right. So it was just a wide open intersection, and now we put a couple of medians there. And again, what we're trying to do is prevent the left turn out, because that is the most difficult turn that you're going to do, particularly during that 20 or 30 minutes that the school gets really busy. You're going to be dealing with a 4-lane roadway, and that does make it a little bit difficult to get across. There's no question about that. So the way this is being designed is you will still come into the school with the left turn lane here, and you will enter the school driveway. Obviously the right turn, no problem. And if you're coming out of the school, whereas you used to be able to just turn left, you'd be required to turn right, go around the roundabout, and carry on east. So what it does, it takes that difficult left turn, which would have caused delays for people, and parents are dropping off, and it allows you just to make that simple right turn and then get around the roundabout and go left. And that is exactly what the roundabout is supposed to do, is make things safer for motorists. So that's how the school access is going to work with the roundabout. So I hope that kind of answered that question. So I hope you didn't mind me pausing to kind of get through some of those questions, because they were fresh in your mind, and it allowed me to go back and kind of explain that a little bit. So we covered off Anniversary Way, which is the extension of Bridge Street. You're absolutely right. We talked about that. And then this is the Stinson entrance aligned with the seniors home, provided another opportunity for us where you have a fair bit of volume coming in and out of Stinson wanting to go right and left. We didn't want to have that happen across 4 lanes of traffic, and while you're also dealing with people coming in and out of the retirement home. So this pulls them all together in the intersection to provide a safer movement. And then of course over here you can see the Campbell Creek and where the new 4-lane bridge will be constructed. And so I'm going to also spend a bit of time talking about the construction of this bridge structure, because that is a common question. So the beauty of doing this now is that what we will be doing from a staging point of view, so the existing bridge will remain, and a brand new 4-lane bridge will replace this. And the way that gets done is you build the south 2 lanes of the new 4-lane structure, and you divert all of the existing traffic onto so you can build the new bottom half of the new 4-lane structure on the south side, and you can divert all this traffic onto that, and then you close down and tear down this bridge, and you build the north half of your 4-lane structure. So at all times, the beauty of doing it this way is you can build half the bridge, divert the traffic to that side, whereas we're still using 2 lanes, and then build the other half of the bridge, and then you open it up to 4 lanes. So there are a lot of questions get asked about, are we going to be shutting down County Road 43 to build the bridge? No, we're not. Will there be some delays at certain points in the construction? Absolutely. There will be a couple of days or evenings. We'll do them usually overnight, where you're trying to bring the beams for the bridge structure into place. You have to have fairly large cranes to do that, and you don't want to be trying to lift over and near live traffic. So that operation usually takes one night. You do it in after hours, or plenty of notice for people, and you accommodate that work so that back in the morning you open up to traffic. So there will be temporary closures. Occasionally there'll be some traffic lane closures, maybe just to allow people to work there. But generally speaking, no, we're not going to be shutting down 43 for 2 or 3 years that it's going to take to construct this bridge, and it does take that long for a number of reasons, the complexity of building a bridge, but also there are a number of environmental regulations. So for example, you are not allowed to do any in-water works on any bridge structure until after July 1st, just because of the fish spawning window that you have there. And then there's certain times of the year in the fall after which you cannot cut trees because of the Bird Migratory Act. And so construction now becomes this a real scheduling challenge because you have to work around all kinds of environmental regulations. And so you don't just get to start in March or April and keep working. So it really reduces the window within which you can do work. And when you start doing major structures like this, pouring that much concrete, excavation in wetlands, it's something that's a challenge. And so therefore the schedule, it gets expanded over 2 to 3 years to complete a structure of this nature when you're trying to do this work. And so that's a little bit about the bridge and then how that's going to work. I talked about this roundabout already. There's your representation of Stinson's. This is your retirement home here, and this is what, and of course, you know, we haven't fully shown what the landscaping is going to look like in this roundabout. We have a fair bit of time to figure that out. And then moving further east, you have County Road 19. Here you have the McEwen gas station, obviously Giant Tiger, KFC down here, the new Starbucks, and the brand new building that's going up on that pad right now as we speak, or has actually been constructed. So here we're really just, again, this is an existing roundabout. We're modifying it to bring it up to 4 lanes, and then modifying these radiuses. Now, I want to talk a little bit about that aspect, is because a common commentary that I hear from people is that the traffic is going through the roundabout too fast on 43, and as a person coming in off the side street, you know, you have to wait a long time to kind of get into it. So that's really the way you manage that is there's actually a very specific design feature, which is the speed of the vehicle coming in, and you control the speed of the vehicles coming in by the angle of deflection coming into the roundabout. So if you go out and kind of observe that right now, you don't have much of an angle coming into the roundabout. So, you know, you can comfortably go through that roundabout probably at 40 kilometers an hour, sometimes 50, if not higher. So what we're doing through this exercise when we modify this is, you can see here, there's a bit of a curvature identified in the road itself. You dip down and then you turn right. So the bigger this deflection is and the bigger this angle is, you know, the slower you have to go in order to negotiate the roundabout. And so with this new modern design that we have for roundabouts, we are changing those entry paths significantly. And so we're not just leaving this roundabout alone. We actually have to do work to change that entry deflection. And by doing that, and it's not just a matter of dealing with the median, you sometimes have to deal with the alignment of the road and change that coming in so that you actually make it very pronounced coming in to here. So by doing these things, you slow down the traffic coming in on all the approaches. And when the traffic on 43 has to slow down, that provides you with more of a gap and an opportunity to enter into the roundabout. So again, this is not, it's not a new novel concept. It's been tried and tested in many, many municipalities where they have much higher volumes that you'll see here. And so that's the plan on how that's going to work. So then that's a 3D visual. You see the McEwen on the northwest corner, and then there's the KFC building there, shown there, and this is the 3D you can see of the roundabout. Right. And then that kind of brings us to the east end of the project at Colonnade. And in this diagram, you don't see it, but we're actually making modifications further to the east, again, to modify the radius of vehicles coming into the roundabout and entering into the roundabout itself. So that kind of gives you an overview of, and there's a 3D of that roundabout. Again, looking fairly sparse in this rendition. But we'll be working with the municipality to look at that as well. So before I go further, I'm just going to switch, and I'm going to try to show you a nice sort of video of what you've just seen. It's a little flyby at looking to drive through the animation, and let me cue that up for you. So does everybody see the image there, a 3D image of that? And I'm going to run the video. And I'll stop at a certain point, but here, just to orient you, we are starting at the west end of the project, just west of County Road 44. So to orient yourself, the Pioneer gas station here is, there's Jim Perry Motors, and you're looking east, you're looking towards Kempo Creek over here on the horizon. So let's run the video, and I think you'll find that this provides you a really nice visual of what this will look like. So here you are. You can kind of see some of the whether it ends up looking exactly like this or not, but you can see some of the landscaping that is being proposed in the middle of the roundabout as we go through. Oops, I want to pause there, and this is another visual of the pedestrian crossing of what we call the two-stage crossing going through there. And then we're moving on. We're coming up to the Shoppers Drug Mart roundabout. Again, I want to point out the beauty of having these center medians is to be able to accommodate the landscaping, and there is a vision to provide tree planting and landscaping down the center of this median. It disappears in that section where the businesses are east of here, but then it picks up again. And again, you can see some of the landscaping, and this is giving a bit of visual coming into the Shoppers entrance. As the Shoppers entrance is to your left. Going through, you see the switchback pedestrian crossings, and you can see some of where there's an opportunity. We always try to break up, 4 or 5 lanes of asphalt to provide it. And here's that what I was explaining. There was a question about how the high school works. You can turn left here, but if you're coming out of the school, you'll come here. You'll turn right around the roundabout and continue east along that way there. That I believe is the other gas station. I think it's Ultra. I'm not sure. Ultramar. More landscaping you can see in the middle here. And this is where I was explaining we had this two-way left turn lane to allow people to come in and out of these businesses that are very close to each other, have a number of driveways. And as you can see, if there was a median there, you would have to go all the way over to Anniversary Way to turn around and come back. So we're trying to provide for that. Pay attention, this is where we have the multi-use path on the north side being shared by pedestrians and cyclists on both sides. There will also be, we didn't put it in here, but there will also be landscaping in this boulevard. There's plantings and trees that will be planted here. Right now we're coming up to Anniversary Way, or this is where the cemetery is again, and this is getting you into Ferguson Forest. You can see again the switchback left turn lanes that are being designed here. More landscaping in the middle to provide that greenery. And then the median narrows as we get to the new bridge structure. We didn't want to spend the money to have such a wide structure because bridges become extremely expensive as you start to increase the width. So we narrowed it coming across the bridge. You just have a narrow median just for the separation of traffic and safety. The pedestrian and cycling facilities will continue on both sides of the bridge to bring you across safely. And now we're approaching the seniors' home on the right side, and then Stinson's gas station on this side. Switchbacks. There's this one here is an interesting discussion. We haven't quite worked out the details of the crossing on the east side of this roundabout. We've been made aware that there is a snowmobile path that comes in here, and they want to often get across to Stinson's to gas up. So we have to think a little bit about how we're going to do. Obviously, we're not going to take snowmobiles through the switchback that you see back here for pedestrians. So we have to think about how, right now we've just shown it as a concrete crossing there across the road, but we became aware of that. And so we're looking at how we're going to accommodate that movement across the road as well, including pedestrians, and maintaining, that activity of snowmobiling that occurs in the community. So again, you see, again, the nice landscaping. I think it's going to dramatically change the way this road looks, the way it's going to feel with this landscaping in the middle and on the sides of the road. This is the McEwen gas station. This is County Road 19. We're coming across here, switchbacks again, and then we come around here. The Starbucks is there, and then we end up here at Colonnade roundabout that leads into the Walmart and the stores over there. So there you go. That's a little flyby. We worked with the consultant to get this done because we felt it was important for people to visualize exactly, how this would work. And see, we'll go back to the presentation here. Oops, sorry. All right. We kind of went through a couple of other things that where did we end up here? Okay. So I want to talk a little bit about a couple of other features. And am I still good on time? I've been sort of going at this pace, but are we okay with time?
I think people are very interested, but maybe if you could just, yes, we're pretty well at our limit.
Okay, let me get through these next few slides quickly because I know there's questions and I see a few more popping up. So let me just finish it and then we'll open it up to questions because I know your meeting normally finishes around this time. Pedestrian lighting is something that we've done. You can kind of see there's pedestrian level lighting that we planned here in addition to the roadway lighting. These will be decorative, to designed to fit in with the community. I talked about the medians already. And this is an example of other places that have already done it. And there's some decisions about the landscaping here as well that'll occur. But the intention is to start planting trees in the middle. And you can see in the middle and in the boulevard along here. We talked about landscaping in the roundabout, which is still to be determined. Oh, somebody asked me to replace this with a better image, which I didn't do, I guess. But there's a couple of sidewalks that we're going to extend. This one is County Road 19. There's a giant tiger. There's a lot of residential community here. There's a pathway, a trailway that comes into here. So when we do this project through North Grenville, we're going to extend a sidewalk right down to Ryan's Well Drive. And over at Colonnade, we don't want to leave people stranded. So there's a sidewalk there on Colonnade today, and we're going to extend the sidewalk down from County Road 43 down to those locations. And I already explained the bridge and the decision about why we went to a 4-lane structure. So we'll cover that off. That's done. I've already presented the 3D video to you. And a rough schedule to finish off the discussion. So we're working with the utility company. So you're going to see some action out there, hopefully later this summer. With the utility requests, all the hydro poles have to move, Enbridge Gas has to move, Bell, Cogeco. So there's a huge undertaking which will start this fall, late summer, and move on. There's some tree removal that has to occur outside of the bird migratory window, so that'll occur in October. The tendering process will start late this fall, hopefully awarded in early 2022. Start construction in 2022. You can see there, and the bridge construction will continue. And there's my information there, Arup at archem.ca. Probably better just to reach out to me rather than the project manager at AECOM if you have any further questions after this presentation. So I'm going to stop sharing the screen, and so we can go back to our meeting here. And Anna, are there any more, is there some more questions in the chat, or do you want to just open it up, or what do you want to do?
Well, there is a question, why are you putting trees in the roundabout? Because that blocks oncoming traffic.
Yeah, so that's a good observation there, and actually it's purposeful. So we actually don't want you to see right through the roundabout. We want you to focus from a design point of view and a motorist behavior point of view. We want you to focus on what's happening right in front of you. So the only conflict you're going to be dealing with is looking with the vehicle coming into the roundabout from the left. So they're actually designed, there's a whole design process you go through where you actually don't want people looking through the roundabout and looking further ahead than just what they need to do to negotiate that particular intersection where you're entering the roundabout and you're dealing with the conflict. We don't want motorists to be distracted by what's happening because it doesn't matter what you see down the road. All that matters is the conflict coming from the left.
There was another question, will the bridge height change?
No, that was I'm not going to say controversial, but it was brought up back in the 2010 EA and it was investigated. Changing the height of that bridge brought in a number of factors. Number one, the cost. So it's going to probably add 50% more cost to the bridge structure. Number two, if you imagine if you raise that bridge, you know, the slopes coming down off that bridge all of a sudden have to gradually come back down to the road. That would have a significant impact on the Stinson property, the Creekside Plaza property, the seniors home property, and you'll be introducing slopes coming down right into those roundabouts. So there's that factor. And then from an environmental point of view, this was reviewed, and frankly, when we investigated the depth of the creek, I'm going to say it's south, heading towards Bridge Street, the creek shallows out quite a bit. Like other than a bull rider boat, you really can't get anything bigger than a hull going down that creek. So if you really wanted to do that, and I've heard this through efforts to try to provide boating traffic all the way down into the main part of town, but you know, then you have to raise Bridge Street. I always applaud the vision because yes, that is good visionary thinking. But the circumstances in this particular situation, unlike if you go to let's say, where is that?
Maybe Perth?
Perth, thank you, Perth. They had the opportunity to do it there from the get-go. Here we couldn't. And finally, if you start widening the bridge, you end up with a bigger footprint because you're now doing a taller bridge, you need a bigger footprint, which means more loss of wetland. Bigger boats going through a creek create bigger wakes, which have an impact on the flora and the fauna in that. So for all those reasons, back in 2010, a decision was made not to increase the height of the bridge because in order to go further south, you would actually have to dredge the creek. And there was very little appetite for the Ministry of Environment to support that kind of activity in the creek. And the final point there is you do have homes and cottages, not cottages, homes right along the creek there, and you know, they enjoy a certain amount of peace and quiet currently, and then there would be an impact to their way of life as well. So when you there's no one single reason, you have to kind of take all of that into consideration, and we landed at the end of the day to say no, we're not going to increase the height to allow bigger boats to come south.
A question that I was wondering about, so I'm going to, you mentioned the dairy bar and how much you enjoyed the food and etc. there, but it's very, very close to the road. And I'm trying to figure out, are you mostly going south for the extra space or are you going north for the space? Because I can't see that in your drawings.
No, very good observation, Anna. And the widening from 2 to 4 lanes in that section, the new 2 lanes is actually going to the north. So we're working very closely with the Ferguson Forestry Center also to make sure, and they knew about this design a long time ago, so some of the tree planting will not be impacted. But no, we cannot go south because of that exact reason you mentioned.
Okay. John is asking, is talk of a traffic light being installed by the 416? Doesn't this, is there a traffic light going to be installed 416?
Yeah, so that was very disappointing to hear from our team. We the ministry is it is their project 100%. Highway interchanges are 100% there in their bailiwick, and I attended when I was director at the county. Attended a number of meetings when they started talking about it, and at one point they were considering roundabouts, and it has been done. If you go to some of the roundabouts, you will see that that instead of a traffic light, they do have roundabouts at the interchange. They work quite well. But at the end of the day, the ministry went through their own environmental assessment process and really landed on the decision that they couldn't support the roundabouts because of property impacts and other operational impacts that they had. So they have landed on the decision for traffic lights. We're not happy about it. would have been nice. As you know, there's a roundabout being planned, or maybe you don't know, there's a roundabout being designed over at South Gore, County Road 22 and 43. Quite so, but maybe a couple of kilometers east of there. So that intersection, many of you have heard the news about the collisions that have been happening there and the safety factor. So we really would like to have seen the full roundabout solution. But nonetheless, you know, we can't control that. The ministry made their decision. They were aware of what we were doing, but they couldn't support the roundabouts. There will be traffic lights there, but hopefully we'll change the nature of the traffic coming in all the way from South Gore when you're going to hit the roundabout already. And I believe there's plans to change the speed limit in that section and gradually get down from your 80 kilometers to something like 70 or something like that, and then carry on into town. Unfortunately, you will hit the traffic lights at the 416, but then hopefully you'll have a much better environment after that. I think John's got his hand raised as well.
Yes. My question about the traffic lights is my question there. The whole point of getting rid of traffic lights, I thought, was to reduce the maintenance costs and everything else. With a roundabout, at least you don't have that major maintenance cost. But with a traffic light, I mean, putting them up on the 416, who then becomes liable to pay
Again,
for the upkeep?
Well, it's the province, and I think all of our income tax goes towards the province, so we all do. So you're right, John. I mean, they went through all of that thinking at the end of the day, and I don't know the details of their project, but they landed at the end of the day on traffic lights, because I think they actually ran into a property problem there, and they weren't interested in looking at more property and probably the cost as well. They weren't getting there. So that's their decision. We were part of it at the beginning when they looked for consultation.
So why did they need to put traffic lights there at all? Because at the moment, traffic comes in and joins into the municipal. Of it.
So the traffic lights are going in there to replace the two interchanges. They're coming off the 416, right? So right now you come off the 416 and you have to make left turns to get on to the highway. So they looked at their volumes, their traffic volumes, and as Kemptville grows, as the North Grenville grows, there's a more of a demand, and rightly so. We want to businesses flourish. We want. I mean, this is the PROBUS group, right? So you ultimately want businesses to succeed, and as the community grows and businesses grow, there's more attraction and people coming here. So there's a growth in the left turning volume coming off the roundabouts, and it got to the point where it triggered the threshold for them to consider some kind of control there at 43. And I don't know about you guys, but even me, in being versed in design, when I come off, let's say from the south, when I'm coming for the 401, I've never liked that left turn coming onto 43.
I agree.
You guys all know it from an intuitive point of view.
But it's not good.
I always pick it up from a design engineer's point of view, because I don't like the grade. I don't like the grade to the left. The cars come fast, but worse, when I look to the right, sometimes, and at nighttime, I have trouble figuring out if the car is going north on the 416 or if it's coming straight, and they're coming at a good clip.
Yeah.
So that conflict, I don't know how many times I've had to stop myself to think, oh, that car's okay, maybe it, you know, and I stop guessing now. So I've never liked that. And I think by putting in controls, you improve that safety factor of that intersection.
There is another question about, is there going to be a footpath under the bridge for walking paths that could be developed to go downtown in the bridge? Will there be a footpath, do you know?
Yeah, I guess I'm dealing with a very knowledgeable group here. So so this is a project that North Grenville is undertaking. I forget, they have a really nice name for the project, Boardwalk something. So there is plans, and we've had that conversation with North Grenville about what do we build from 43 down to that, because yes, there is a pathway that is being proposed. I think it's actually a boardwalk starting south of the bridge, and it will carry down all the way down through and connect with, I don't know exactly how the connection works to the south, but absolutely. And it's an exciting project, to be honest, because that part of the creek has a lot of good marshland. And so we didn't miss that, and we are going to integrate getting from the multi-use path up on 43 to be able to get down into that so that you'll be able to carry on to the south.
I see John's hand up again, but I do have another question, and that's in relation to where you're stopping the 2 lanes at somewhere between Pine Hill and Somerville. And yep. I'm just wondering why to stop there. Why not continue all the way to Somerville, considering the development that's going on right now? Are we not leaving ourselves open to do construction again in a couple years after you're not you personally?
Yeah.
Once this construction's finished, it just looks like, why not do it what needs to be done right now instead of waiting another 4 or 5 years and saying, oh, we should have continued on a quarter of a kilometer.
No, and I wish I was able to, you know, convince county council of that at the time, but you know, we would have had to carry on the detailed design for quite a bit further. I think I kind of mentioned this previously. You know, the change west of the roundabout, there's already, I think at one point there's a very long right turn lane when you come from the McDonald's and you're heading, or from the your independent grocer. So it's almost 4 lanes there today. Like you have a center lane, you have a north lane, a south lane, and then there's this right turn. So it wouldn't take much. You know, you're right. There might have been there is probably an argument for that. I think it was also decided that we want to get on with what's already been approved, because if you start to start adding on to a project, you know, we would have had to open it up a lot more. And the ministry doesn't like it. They don't mind if you can show a good reason why you're doing an addendum. But once you start opening it up to a brand new EA, and I can tell you that the regulations of doing an environmental assessment study now are far greater. So had we started to tackle that, we would not have been able to get away with an addendum any longer. And we would have had to do a full EA. So there would have been more cost, more delays, and we had funding from the government, federal, provincial governments. I think they've contributed close to $10 million on this project. And so we didn't want to delay that any further because everybody's been waiting for this so long.
Yes.
It doesn't mean it can't happen as a phase 2. And I think there are simple ways to make those changes. I say simple, but until you get into the details, the devil is in the details.
Right.
Okay.
Right. So that's sort of a roundabout way around, long way.
I'm going to ask John to stay on. I'd like to ask Jean to give you a thank you, and then if you could stay on a few more minutes. If John has, I think he has another following question, perhaps a few other people do, and those that can stay then can stay on. So if would that be all right with you, Arup?
Yeah, I think I'm clear. I'm clear till 11, so we got about 12 minutes left.
Okay, that's great. So Jean, if you would like
for that. So yeah, no problem at all whatsoever. I hope you found this.
Mr. Mukherjee, I am very impressed, especially with your video presentation. It looks so pretty. I'm actually anxious to see this project end, and I hope I'm still driving at that point. Your presentation was very interesting and informative. There's not a person in Kempville who's not going to be affected by the work that's being done on 43. And the more that we know about it, the more comfortable we're going to feel by going through this process itself. I mean, the end product is wonderful, but we're going to have to put up with a lot in the meantime. And I think you've made it more acceptable to all of us. I would like to thank you very much for your patience in answering our questions and for giving us the time here to be here with us today. Thank you very much, sir.
My pleasure. And just a quick note, I want you all to know, as much as you know, you wanted this project for a long time, this community has wanted this project for a long time. So as the saying goes, be careful what you wish for, because it's going to be, as you mentioned, several years of a lot of headache. I wish I could figure out a way to do construction without dust and mud and noise and disruption to accesses. Once I invent that, I think I'll be very rich. and be able to fly to space like that other guy did. But we're not quite there yet. So just because I'm talking to a business group here, I do want you to know that there will be an outreach and a small group set up. The recommendation has been made to work directly with the businesses and have what I'm going to call them like a lead person who actually will not be an engineer, simply because we're not always the experts when it comes to communication. And so the idea is to bring on somebody who's a spokesperson for the project, will be a single point of contact. And I've suggested some kind of opportunity where, let's say, every second Thursday or something, listen, I'm going to be at the Tim Hortons. If you want to come on by and have a coffee, I really find that kind of informal discussion makes you very accessible to the community. Whether they take my recommendations or not, I don't know. It won't be me. I wish it could, but it could. I just can't take the time to look after a construction project of 3 years right now. But I hope that moves on in some form that's going to be able to do that. But regardless, there's going to be, some effort to work with the business community, because I believe the downtown has a BIA, if I'm not mistaken. But what about all the businesses on 43? I don't know if they're organized into any kind of an organization. So we're going to have to do that.
And I'd like to add thanks to Arup. That was really, really interesting. And I'm looking forward to the end result, but not looking forward to the intermediary next couple of years. I'd also like to wrap the meeting up, and then people can stay and talk to you. And just remind everyone that next month's meeting, it is our mayor. And I expect it's going to be quite a busy meeting. So we'll see you all next month. Thank you so much, Arup. And back to you, Anna.